Hello, and welcome to another episode of Crossing Bridges Talk Show. I'm your host, Larry Montgomery, Sr. This is my co host, Will. Will, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm William Montgomery. It's a pleasure to be here.
We have a guest this week, and we don't have his audio on, and we don't have his picture in there yet. But if he can hear me, if, I hope he can hear me. Let's see. Now we should be communicating.
I hear you loud
Darrell,
and clear.
Pastor, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Hmm. All right.
There
Oh,
you
okay.
go.
Can't
How are you? How are you, sir?
doing great.
Good, good, good. We've had some technical difficulties up to the last second, I tell
I
you.
understand. I understand.
The devil has been busy, so you must have something good to say today.
I hope so.
I know it is. This is my son, William. William, this is Pastor Darrell Williams.
You're doing
Um,
William.
Good
this is
afternoon.
our thank you. Okay, this is our first meeting here, and yeah, I found him on Podmatch, which is where I get used most of my guests, and he has an interesting story to tell, and something about coming from Compton to the White House. And so we didn't have a chance to chat earlier, but I know you got a story to tell us, so I'm gonna just turn the mic over to you, sir, and have your way.
All right, Larry William. Thanks for having me again. I'm just glad to be here and share any nuggets that I can that can help anyone out there. Uh, Basically, my story started, again back in Compton. At the time that I grew up in there, and during that time, it was, I believe, it was the fourth most dangerous city in America.
Uh huh.
So this is the timeline. Those of you that know the movie Boys in the Hood,
Yes.
that's that's the era that I grew up in, and my brothers and sisters grew up in the era of straight out of Compton.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, growing up in that environment definitely was a challenge. Don't need to repeat some of the stuff because everybody's seen the movies. But the key I want to bring out is, regardless of what was going on around me, I knew that there was something else out there.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, um, that way out was through the military.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into a army recruiter my junior year and didn't really want to join the military, right? And I was actually trying to avoid the guy. And once he started talking, it was like this aha moment came on. Like, man, this is really making a lot of sense. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have any other way to move forward in life, so why not the military? And I share with a lot of young people that was definitely one of the best decisions professionally that I ever made because it just opened up some opportunities that I know for a fact I would not have had
Mm-hmm.
had I stayed in California.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say my I have two sons. Um, the older one is older than William,
Okay.
and he joined the military, the Army.
Oh,
I was in the Air Force, and
oh,
William here has retired from the Army.
all
So
right. Same
so
here.
we feel your
Thank you,
pain.
sir. Sir.
Same to you.
But go on, so and tell us more.
So then for me, once I got in the military, um, one of the things I found out early on was, hey, I can't just be here, right? I got to make something out of this. I got to make it worth my while. I was something when I went to the military, I was only maybe a buck 20 wet. Uh, People on the corner was like, yeah, we'll see you back here on Johnson Street because we know you can't make it in the Army, right? So I
Mm,
just had all this pressure that I'm not going back to Compton, right? I'm not going to mess up the family name. I'm make a name for myself. Nobody in my I was the oldest of four, and my mom. Matter of fact, it's interesting. My mom, she only had a high school education, and my dad dropped out of school in sixth grade. As a matter of fact, my dad used to pick cotton
mm,
in Little Rock, Arkansas, before he moved to California to just start a better life.
mm,
So I always share that with people that sometimes your motivation can be, a lot of things around you. Even if it's negative, you can turn that into motivation. So for me, once I got in the Army, I just tried to do what I could to advance, right? And for me, and Will knows, in the Army they love competition boards, and if you can run fast and do PT and all that type of stuff, it kind of puts you out there. And back then, you had to shine your boots and do your uniforms, and if you were sharp and squared away, it kind of gave you a little bit of advantages. So I did everything I could to stand out. And once I left basic training and went to AIT, which is basic advanced individual training. For those that don't know, that's where you actually teach you your career. So I went in as a human resource specialist, and ended up going to Germany for my first assignment. And I'm thinking I'm gonna have a regular job, but unlike the Air Force, the Army put you anywhere. So I'm
Really?
going over. I'm going over to Germany thinking I'm going to be in human resources doing some cool job, and I'm working at a post office and not selling stamps. They got the brother working on the warehouse floor where all the trucks come in and the Sealand containers. So I'm
Mm,
offloading trucks. Like,
mm.
okay, I can either get bitter and complain about this, or I can be the best box humper they've ever seen in Cape Town, Germany. And I just chose to change my mindset to, try to make it work. And started doing all of that, still competing in competition boards. And for my particular region, United States Army Europe, uh, in the postal region, I made it up to Soldier of the Year. And I lost, but I also tell people, but I won. Because even though I lost, one of the sergeant majors, which is the senior ranking person in the enlisted side of the Army, saw me and said, "Hey, I think you got a bright future, young man. I'm going to be in your area in a couple of weeks. Need to make sure we talk." And at that time, I had orders for Fort Hood, Texas. Was ready to go and soldier and do my best because I just had confidence in myself that I'm going to make it. But the senior enlisted leader changed my assignment to the Pentagon, and I was upset, right? Because I didn't know any better, right? I'm like, no, you can't soldier at the Pentagon. And what he told me was there's some people, and especially um, those of us that are of color, he's like, we don't get a lot of opportunities at that time that everybody else can get. And he said, when we come across those type of individuals that show that type of maturity, we have to put them strategically in certain places so they can shine, but also open up the door for others.
Uh-huh. Good.
So when he explained that to me, Larry, I didn't understand it, but I respected him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the Pentagon, was working for an Army Intelligence Agency, and once I got there, I didn't like it. I didn't try to like it, right? I tried to compare to what was familiar, right, which
Mm-hmm.
was regular soldiering, and not understanding that it was a special assignment that I had to just show self-discipline and learn what I could. So I never forget Major Oscar Davis. I went to him and said, "Sir, I need to get out of here. This is holding me back. I found an MP unit over on Fort Myer, Virginia. I can go over there." And he turned me down. He said, "I'm not letting you go." And I was like, "Why are you trying to hold me back?" Right? And I love that story now because I tell a lot of young people sometimes we're at a higher place, and because we're not comfortable, we try to take ourselves to a lower place.
Uh-huh. Go on,
I,
preach
I,
now.
I didn't realize that the MP company was a lower assignment than the Pentagon. So I'm glad that Major Davis didn't let me go because it allowed me to wake up a little bit more, so I focused on that assignment. And then from there, I saw an announcement for the White House Communications Agency. And Larry and William, I wish I can tell y'all that I was trying to, get there for the right reasons, but I was not. Uh, the interview was on a Friday, and I told my friend, "Hey, if we leave Friday morning and get this interview out the way, we can be off for the rest of the day and goof off."
Uh,
So months later, my friend found out that he didn't get accepted, and then I found out that I did, and it was so
mm,
long ago I didn't even realize it. I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, what was that all about? What did I get myself into?" And lo and behold, January 1990, right, showed up at the White House Communications Agencies, the agency that supports the president, vice president, first lady, Secret Service and White House staff as directed. And my background was human resources, so I went in as a human resources. But you also have a travel mission, which based on your background will determine where you travel. So at that time, Bush Senior was in the office. So I was traveling what they called an operations coordinator. So for all those listening, this is back in the day, right?
Mhm.
One person had the credit card, one person bought all the vehicles, one person rented all the rooms. And basically, my job was kind of like a first sergeant on the road. You had an officer that was over the team and the communication aspect, but I pretty much ran the day to day to make sure when the president showed up, everything was in place. Team
Mhm.
members had what they needed. And once I got there, I realized, like, man, this is way over my head. I need to put some strategies together to be successful here.
uh,
And one of the first things I did was I sought out a mentor,
mhm.
like who obviously looks like me that's already in this place that's doing well,
Mhm.
and I went to those people, humble myself. It's like, hey, I really want to be good at this. Show me what you do. Tell me what I need to know, and how can I be good at it? And it's amazing when you have a humble attitude how much people are willing to pour into you. Because everybody that I went to, nobody turned me away. Everybody told me about what they did, and I ended up just getting really good at it and working on my craft and always trying to fine tune how can I be better. And I got to be what they call the downy dirty person. And
Uh-huh.
what that is sometimes on the news you hear about a national emergency or disaster, and the president is going to go there in a couple of days. Well, those type of assignments, it takes a special person to call it down and dirty. It was not the standard 1 week, but you got to make stuff happen in a couple of hours. So I became that person. A lot of pressure, but it was a lot of fun because
Mhm.
people are dependent on you to get that team to that destination with limited resources, knowing that they got to set up for the president. So I did that for about 6 years, and it was great. And I just got a little tired. People say, "How could you get tired working at the White House?" But again, being immature, you just figure I've been doing this for a while. I need to get my boots dirty again. So I remember calling my assignment manager and saying, "Hey, I want to leave the White House and take a short tour." And for those listening, a short tour is one of those assignments where you only go for 12 months. Normally, it's a place for the Army, right? Korea, um, and those types of places, Okinawa. And I remember the branch manager saying, "Okay, what type of trouble are you about to get into? What are you running from?" And I was like, nope, I'm at the top of my game. I'm in good standing. I just want to get my boots dirty. I did come out of a bad relationship, but I told her I just needed a change. And I thought it'd be a good time to do it. So the branch manager said, tell you what, if you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. So he sent me to this MI brigade in Korea in Yongsan. And I found out why he sent me there. It's an MI unit. So a lot of times military intelligence on the Army side, not like the Air Force. The Air Force is, they take care of business no matter what. But the Army, we have some guys that only want to do the fun stuff and didn't want to do the soldier and stuff. So a lot of them guys would, retire. And I was like, nah, I'm too young to retire. So I took the assignment and I got there. I was a platoon sergeant. And it was actually a really fun assignment because now I'm getting a chance to mold these young men. And this is their first assignment. And unfortunately, we had some leaders at that time that didn't know how to take care of people. So we had
Mhm.
a lot of young soldiers that were about to get out the military because of these bad leaders. And I had to tell them, hey, don't, let somebody else's actions dictate your future,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I said, give me a year. Let me work with you. Let me show you what the Army's really about. And then after a year, if you want to still get out, that's fine. But at least let me show you what it could look like. And
Mhm. Mhm.
luckily, that 1 year was one of the best years I had, working with a lot of young soldiers and showing them, how to better themselves, how to be better at their craft, and just how to be better young men and women, right? And
Mhm.
one thing I told them was, even if you get out the Army, I still want you to be better than you were when you came in and have a plan if you decide to get out. And I was really blessed that a lot of them actually stayed in and they kept in contact with me throughout the years
Mhm.
before I retired. And that was a blessing by itself.
Mhm.
And then from there, I went back to the White House Communication Agency. At that time, I made E7. And for senior leaders on the enlisted side, you can travel the president or you can travel on the vice presidential side where you would actually be in charge of the team. Smaller team, smaller equipment, but still same type of important mission. So at that time, I was supporting Vice President Gore, right? Traveling ahead of time, making sure everything was set up before he got there. And then Vice President Cheney came in office. So I was supporting him. And then everybody remember 9/11 when that happened. Everybody knows where they were. And for me, people that remember that is President Bush was in Florida, right? Kind of hunkered down until they figured out what's going on. And Vice President Cheney was kind of running the show a little bit. After all of that happened, a lot of agencies went back and changed kind of the way they do what we call emergency action communication. Because normally at that time, everything is really set up for if something happens to the president, we prepare the next guy in charge. But we never had anything that said, well, what if the vice president still needs to do some things? So they took 5 of us off of this roster of 30 senior leaders, and I was one of them, and ran us through this emergency training and kind of blessed us off and said, you are now vice presidential communication response officers. Go forth and do good things.
Uh-huh.
And it was 5 of us with the 5 MLAs, the 5 docs, and different Secret Service guys. And one of the 5 of us was with Vice President Cheney everywhere he went, whether it was in the motorcade, flying on Air Force Two, doing events within the DC area, and also when he traveled. And definitely one of the best jobs that I could ever have. And again, I always thought back, like, how can a young man from Compton, be on Air Force Two, and sometimes the only person of color on Air Force Two. So everybody staring at you, and in the back of your mind, you thinking like, I can't screw this up. They probably think I shouldn't be here. They probably think I'm one of the cooks in the back. So let me make sure I represent well. And it was always so cool when people would try to start that conversation on the plane, Larry. They'll say, oh, so where you from? I say, I'm from Compton. Really? How'd you get out of there? I'm like, okay. Joined the military and, paying attention to mentors, surrounding myself around accountability partners. And they're like, oh, wow, this guy's, a little bit different. I'm like, well, I would hope so. If I'm Air Force Two, I would think that they only put the best of the best up here. And it was just a great job, a lot of mentoring. I was able to make a lot of relationships. And the other cool part about that job I had, Larry, was when we traveled all over, obviously most of the places we stayed with the staff, it was always the top places in every city. So I took that as, I'm not here for myself. I'm here to help others. So I would always go to the front desk, or, a lot of us, they had us working like in the back, right? Part of the staff and housekeeping in the kitchen. So I rolled back there, and they're like, what are you doing back here, sir? You can't be here. You're one of our special guests. I was like, hey, man, don't worry about all that. I'm just a regular guy with a special assignment, and just be fortunate. But hey, man, I need to know, where's the black churches at? Where's the schools around here where I can go and go talk to some kids? Because I know that I have a different mission while I'm doing something like this. And they were so great. They would always tell me, man, if you really want to talk to some kids, you need to go to this church on Sunday, because this is a real good place where they got a lot of kids. And I would just call them, man, just a cold call. Like, hey, you don't know me, but I work for the president. I was in the military. I grew up in Compton. I just want to talk to some kids if you need me. And once people got past the shock, and they were like, well, if you really are who you are, here's the address to the church. Love to see you on Sunday. And I would show up right before Sunday school, trying to meet the pastor, the people in charge. And I used to always bring pictures of me of the White House and, just pass them out and things like that. And to me, that was one of the best parts of the job, to travel all over the world, especially the United States, and go and speak to these young men and women to let them know that what they see is not what everything is, and where they are is not who they are. But everything is done, whether we believe it or not, for a purpose to get us to where we need to go.
Right. You're right about that. Will, I know you're on mute now, but can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You want to chime in, or you forced to carry on your way?
No, I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm glad he was able to do all that stuff. I mean, it sounds like he reached out and touched a lot of children. and many probably adults probably wind up joining the military based on his interaction with them.
Well, tell them
Yeah.
where you were stationed, so you get some sense of how well traveled you are.
Yeah.
Not as well traveled as he is, but I mean, I did spend some time in Germany.
Nice.
My first duty station was Fort Huachuca,
Cool.
Arizona.
Cool. Cool.
Then I went to Korea. I was in Camp Carroll down in Waiguan. Next duty station while I re-enlisted at that time. Went to Hawaii.
Nice. Nice.
Excuse me, spent 3 years in Hawaii. Uh, Left Hawaii, went to Fort Bliss, Texas. I was there for 4 years. Re-enlisted indefinitely at that time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I went from Fort Bliss, Texas, went to school in Georgia, Fort Gordon, because I'm
Yep.
signal.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And then from there went to Germany, and then after Germany came back to Fort Gordon, where I retired out after doing 3 years, 3 more
Nice.
years.
Nice. For anyone listening, one thing that I know Will can testify to is one of the great things about the military. And again, not trying to push everybody to the military, but I am saying if you don't have a plan to go to college or you don't want to start off in the regular workforce, I would tell anyone, look at the military as a place, at least to kind of get your foot in the door in the world and allow you a chance to just see some things and meet some people that can help you. But one thing I know Will can testify to is when you join the military, one great thing about it, there's always leaders around you that can pour into you. And as long as you have a humble spirit, a willingness to learn, I found that people were always willing to help you make it to whatever that next goal was, whether it's the next rank, the next assignment, something to better yourself. And that was one of the things I thought was really good. And it was so cool too, because it wasn't about the race. Yes, racism was there, but it still was not as prevalent as you would think, because a lot of times when you put on that uniform, it really is about the mission, right? I don't care where you come from. Can you help me? Can you help us? Can you help this team? And I just think that the experience that I gained uh, during those times helped me long after I got out of the military. Because one thing I did, when I retired, I wanted to start a motivational speaking business because I knew, you just don't go from Compton to the White House and just sit on that type of stuff. You got to take that back out to the community
Mhm,
and just try
mhm.
to inspire some people. So once I started a little company, ended up going back to work, and I went back to the White House Communication Agency as a trainer. So I was there for about 5 years teaching leadership and operations coordinator and vice presidential communications. And then I went to the government on Fort Meade, Maryland. I worked for the Defense Information Systems Agency, known as DISA.
Mhm.
And so basically their job is, they're pretty much depending on where you live, the Verizon, Comcast, the Cox, satellite and um, telephone communications for all the services and a lot of different agencies. So I do military human resources there. So I've been there now for about 12 years, but I still, again, just use that as a backdrop, right, to my real mission, which is, being a inspirational speaker.
Well, I was, yeah, like I said, I was in the Air Force. My career was a little, took some turns, but I did get an honorable discharge. Um,
That's important.
oh, my job was I was a policeman,
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
so it was a whole kind of different attitude. I started out in at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida,
Okay.
and that was an experience. And then from there, went on to Okinawa at Kadena Air Force Base. Spent some time in Guam, but at the time I was there, just after the Vietnam War, uh, racism was the name of the game.
Sure. Sure.
It was the daily meal.
Right.
But with all of that said and all of that I went through, um, I raised my children to understand commitment and respect.
That's it.
And only God led both of them, my sons. My daughter, she always wanted to be an attorney, so He
Nice.
blessed her that way. But
Amen.
my two boys, they went in and they're good citizens now. Like I said, I'm very proud of William because I'm proud of both of them. That's not the question.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
William stuck in there. He stayed to 20, and he did what he had to do. And so we don't get a chance to talk about that much. So I really appreciate the time that you spent talking about your career. Because I think one of the points that is clear is that if you're not sure what what's out there, step back and take a position with a group that's going to give you an opportunity to figure it out. you know,
That's right.
it may not be easy. When I came in, yeah, it was stand up, soldier. Oh, well, I got to stand up. I'm cool. Yeah,
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
you figure it out after a while. I better stand up. And then when you get out, it's just par for the course.
That's right.
You go anywhere, I go for interviews or whatever, I'm here, and
Hmm.
I'm serious about what I'm trying to do here. I have respect for you and anybody, I give you respect first. And if you don't live up to it, that's okay. I got to move on. I don't take it personal,
That's right.
you know, and these are some of the basic things that you learn. And these are things you can carry with you wherever you go. I know how to conduct myself. I know when to speak, when not to speak, and how to speak. May
Hmm.
not necessarily know all the languages, but you sit and, as you said, you find yourself a mentor, find
Absolutely.
yourself somebody in the room who actually knows what they're talking about, and you get close to them and you,
Absolutely.
you listen and you learn. But I don't want to ramble on. But I want you to talk a little bit about those first few days in the military,
Hmm.
coming from the neighborhood and
Hmm.
the reality of, oh, they're serious.
Oh yeah. Talking about leaving Compton High School and then going to basic training, which for me was Fort Dix, New Jersey, in October. And that was the first time I ever ran into cold weather. So I'm like, okay, this is real serious. Like, what the heck is going on here? But I tell you, Larry, one of the best things that happened to me that not particularly that night, but even the night going into when we were actually in base training was, that was the first time, growing up in Compton, I was around a lot of black people, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Samoans. I wasn't around a lot of white people.
Mhm,
So being in the military, that was my first time being around white people. But guess what? It was their first time also being around black people.
mhm, mhm,
And I tell you, and I tell everybody, one of the best conversations I ever had was at night when they would say lights out. And then everybody would start like, hey man, where you from? Tell me about what you grew up in. And
mhm,
you talking about breaking down some barriers. I mean, it was some really good talks.
mhm,
And that really, I tell you, set the tone for me because, I'm talking to a guy from Oklahoma that's being honest, like, man, I've never been around any black people, let alone sharing a room with a black person. And, we just started dialoguing like, hey, man, so what have you heard about black people? And we shared with them what we heard about white people and we were laughing and
mhm, mhm,
nobody got mad. That's what I loved about it. It was honest conversation, trying to get to know each other and it was just really really cool. And one of the things I always loved about the military is you can go in there maybe good at one thing and maybe have your own personal agenda, but I love the idea that the military breaks you down. A lot of people say, well, they take away your identity, and no, they don't. They take down the personal um, selfishness, but then they
mhm,
build you back up with the mindset of teamwork.
mhm,
And I love the idea in basic training where if somebody was big and a country boy from Texas, right, they would partner them up with a skinny kid from Detroit, Flint, Michigan, or something. And you're like, why are they putting them two together? They have nothing in common. And but the military process works because they take somebody that's good at something else, allow you to bond, allow you to learn each other's strength.
mhm,
And especially in the army, the first time you start trying to outdo your partner and you running, getting in formation, and they saying, "Where's your battle buddy?" And a battle buddy, for those that don't know, is that's the person that they team you up with throughout the whole time that you're in basic training AIT.
mhm,
So right off the bat, they tell you, "I will not see you without your battle buddy." And if your battle buddy is slow, Yeah, your job is to make them faster, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you can't, they can't make their bed or shine their shoes, and guess what? You better help them do it because both of you are going to be graded together as a team,
Hmm.
not individually. And I, like you said, Larry, I take that today in every job that I do. Like whether y'all want to or not, we're going to do everything as a team. We're going to succeed as a team, or we're going to fail as a team. But we're
Hmm.
going to do this thing together. And it was definitely one of the best early lessons that I learned in basic training.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Will, I don't want to, outshine you, you're on mute.
Okay. A lot of what he said was on point. I mean, like, you go into the military, you have all these preconceived notions of what you're seeing on TV, how it's going to be. Oh, this guy's going to be in my face, yelling at me, spitting in my face, blah 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 blah. Oh, I don't know if I can handle it, but you know what? You give it a shot, and you find out that it's not always like it is in the movie. Movies exaggerate a lot of stuff. Now, there are some things that's going to be real, but some stuff is exaggerated for effect. You
Hmm.
know, but at the end of the day, it's a job just like any other job that you have out there. You're going to have a boss telling you what to do.
Yep.
You're going to have to meet certain quotas and requirements in order to be successful in that job. If you do that, you're successful. If you don't, you fail. So whether you're in the military or out the military, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you still have a job. If you're taking care of a child, that child is your boss. It needs to eat. You're going to feed it, right? You need to feed it on time, or that baby's going to starve. So everything is a job. Everything is a task that's required in life. And if you look at it as that, then it's not that different.
Well, he's actually in the Dominican Republic right now, so there's
Nice.
some, data issues. But,
Sure. Sure.
when I was
Oh,
in, I'm sorry, go on. You finished, Will, or no?
Froze up on.
hey, I'm good.
You good? Because you're frozen now. But anyway, let me jump in. Um, uh, uh, Pastor, as you were talking about being in the basic training, I happened to be selected the first night as the dorm chief
Hmm.
and 45 men. And I wasn't the oldest, and I didn't know if I was the smartest, but I wasn't the one to fail, you know, and I wasn't the one to look bad because I didn't get you to do your job, you know. And
Right.
so, what was interesting, in line with what you were saying, at the end of our training in basic training, uh, a white guy, one of my squad leaders, came up to me and he came into the office. I just happened to be sitting in the chief's office and closed the door. He said, I want to tell you something. And I said, well, what you got to say?
Hmm.
He said, I never worked with a black person before,
Yeah.
and I really respect you for the job you've done. And I tell you, Pastor, I was shocked
Sure.
that
Sure.
even in that situation where I came from the project, so and there were some white children there, which
Hmm.
was okay, but race wasn't an issue at
Right.
my age. And as I grew up, still in a mixed neighborhood, poor folk, race wasn't an issue. But when I became a young man and went into the military, I started to see that, yeah, hey, some people are focused on that. And when he said what he said, I was just blown away, because you do find people, meet people, and get to know people, in the toughest situations at that moment. And you hope that the best comes out of everyone, but the focus is the job. Get the job done, and we can fool around all we want later on. But if you didn't do the job, there's going to be hell to pay, somewhere along the line.
That is so true, Larry. And one thing I want to share again, this message any young men out there or single moms raising their kids is one thing I loved that the military taught me also was everybody is a leader.
Mhm.
Even if it's just you by yourself, you still have to make the best decisions for yourself. You have to make decisions that's going to help you So everybody is a leader. And that's one of the things I didn't realize it when I was growing up in Compton, but it definitely manifested itself more when I joined the military. Like this is why, I was able to move from Compton to the military. It was decisions that I made. And I would say for any young person out there that feels like, hey, you know, all I see is all I see, and there's nothing else out there, I would tell them that you have to change your mindset and realize that one of the gifts and the benefits of growing up in the hood is it gives us a mental toughness that a lot of other people do not have.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
We have a common sense approach to things that a lot of people don't have. And then we also have a built in resilience mechanism that a lot of other people don't have, which means that I can bounce back from anything because where I came from, a lot of other people might not make the best decisions to get out of that. So I would tell anybody that doesn't see a future to realize that no, 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 no. You're a leader. You just have to focus on making better decisions. And one thing I try to tell a lot of young people is don't focus on, well, I'm trying to, I can't live my life like William because, Williams, he's doing great things. I can't live my life like Larry because, Larry is the man. It's like you can't compare your year one to Larry's year 10 or William's year 20.
Mhm.
We get
Mhm.
caught up in that a lot, and you can't do that, right? All you can do is at my year one, what can I do to be better in year two?
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
greatest competition is not the person to your left and to your right, but it's that person in the mirror saying, how can I get better tomorrow than I was yesterday?
Mhm. Mhm. And we all have responsibilities, and as you're talking about leadership, if it's an army of one, you know, you have responsibilities, and they're not going to go away. And you need to try to figure out how to get them done the best way possible because these responsibilities are going to keep coming. They just keep coming. And if you don't try to do your best, at the end of the day, you look back over your life and you say, "What a mess I left." And it wasn't just you that made the mess. You've messed up some other people too along the way. Um, the reason for this show is to just for black men to talk, to just talk. We have topics that we pick up or whatever, but sometimes we don't realize how important it is to just exchange information back and forth. Hey, I went through this, you went through that, or whatever, and you know, you may not have handled it well, but you learned something from it. And that
Absolutely.
gives me some information to say, okay, well, I'm not going to make that mistake, or, I'll be aware that that might be a problem as I go through. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and to talk. And I tell you, I'd love to have you again.
Sure.
And, if I don't reach out to you and you something cross your mind that you think you want to share on this show, I please feel free to let me know. You know. And Will, did you want to say anything?
We have a few admin notes. If anyone likes to recommend a topic for us to speak about on the show, please hit us up in the comment section. As well as if anybody wants to be a member on the panel, also hit us up in the comment section.
That's his regular speech. Is Ed McMahon job? He
That's down fact.
he puts that on once a week. And that. So if you have some closing comments, Pastor, please share them. Particular, take a couple of minutes and let people understand how God has been an impact in your life through this whole through your career.
Sure. I tell everybody, it's so funny. I talk to a lot of people and they're like, man, how did you make it to, the top like that? I mean, it's one thing to be assigned to the White Community Agency, but then you were inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
Like I mean, you were one of the best to ever do this thing in 80 years of service. How do you do that? And it's so funny when I tell them, Larry, that well, first of all, my faith is my foundation for everything that I do. And they go, yeah, yeah, I get all that, but tell me the real reason. And I'm like, nah, man, you don't understand. My faith is the real reason. I
Hmm.
don't trust myself. I don't trust my own instinct. I have to allow God to show me, what is it that I'm supposed to learn from this situation? What am I supposed to get out of this? Because a lot of times, Larry, the people see your life and they see the outside, like, oh man, this dude never had any problems in his life, right? It's like I grew up in Compton and moved right to the White House and been living there ever since. Like, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of tragedies, in between that time. And it was funny. I was listening to you guys' episode this morning about why black men don't go to church, and I was like, thinking to myself, you know, had I not gone to church, I'm positive that I would not have been on the road that God had intended for me. So I would say for anybody, regardless of where you are in your life, and especially for those that have not gone to church, if your life is not where you want it to be, and you have not been in church, to me, that would give you enough, hopefully, initiative to say, well, that didn't work that way. So why wouldn't I try it this other way? Because I used to be a former youth pastor, and I always loved talking to kids, and they would like, blame God for stuff. And I'm like, okay, so basically, let me get this right. You didn't ask him for help. You got in trouble, but then you blamed him, even though you didn't involve him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Again, I'm not here to judge or throw shade. I'm just saying, let's think about our decision. Let's think about how can we get better tomorrow. So again, I just want to share words with everybody that my faith was definitely the foundation of everything that I did, and I learned more from my failures than I ever learned from any of my successes. So there are some young men out there that feel like, man, every time I do something, it doesn't work. Nobody believes in me. My mom is hating on me because I remind her of my dad.
Uh,
All those negative things. I tell a lot of young people, I know it's hard, but don't be so upset with your parents because sometimes they don't know how to manage their emotions.
mhm.
And unfortunately, we take it out on our kids in ways that they shouldn't be carrying that type of burden, right? But I still tell them, find a way, like you said earlier, how can I learn from this situation? I know life is crazy. I know life is messed up. You shouldn't be in the situation that you're in, but now that you're here, right? There's a story in the Bible about um, uh, Jonah and the whale, right? Everybody always talk about that story, but one thing I love about the story is once he found out he was there, he had to still make a decision. Now that I'm here, what am I going to do next? And I would
Mhm.
tell any young person, try to apply that to your life. I didn't want to grow up in the projects. I didn't want to grow up in Cabrini Greens or Nickerson Gardens or Compton. But now that I find myself here,
Mhm.
what can I learn from my surroundings? What can I do differently from everybody else? Because here's another thing I was telling. I was talking to a group out of LA yesterday virtually, and I was telling them not only do you have to make it because there's purpose in your life, but you got to make it also because there's somebody coming up that's dependent on you, and you got to be strategically in place when that situation happens. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of young people. They're like, what are you talking about? But I'm telling you, you're going to find yourself either as a hiring manager, as a trainer, right, as the lead guy on that particular group or that crew, that construction team, and somebody's going to get on that job for the first day and not know how to do what they need to do. And you're going to be that person that's going to show them how to do it. And the
Mhm.
only way you can do that is you got to be in place when that time comes. And I know there's a lot of people that say, well, I made too many mistakes, so I probably missed out on that moment. The good news about faith is it's almost like when you pour water down on the sidewalk, right? The lines and the drippage goes in different places. I found in my life that when I make a mistake and I veer off from that regular path, there's some other lines that were created that still brought me back to
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
main path. Once I made one good decision, then that turned into two good decisions. Then I meet somebody like a Larry. Then I meet an accountability partner like a William. And now it's like, okay, I got somebody I can bounce stuff off of like a Larry, but then I also got somebody like William who can hold me accountable to say, hey, you said you wanted to do this. Hey, you need to stay on that.
Mhm.
So mentors, accountability partners, and learning from your mistakes can help any young person get past what they see to what's really out there waiting for them.
Yeah, true that, true that. And God has a plan for you, you know, and it's an easy plan if you focus on Him. But if you don't, man, it's going to be a rough one. You know? But He'll get you there, you
Yeah,
know.
Will.
Pastor, I want to thank you for your time again. And again, I invite you to come back whenever you feel like it. Just let me know when, we'll get you in. You have a topic you want to focus on or whatever, it's fine. And so, as we say in our show, we'll see you again next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Creek don't rise.
Amen.